Fascinating, fascinating subject. Now, of course, Dr. Melamede in Colorado Springs, cannabis or medical marijuana has been used medicinally for thousands of years, but it's really just now that we're finding out how and why it works. What are some of the illnesses and conditions that can be treated?
Well, in order to really answer that question accurately, you have to appreciate the nature of the endocannabinoid system and, in general, the way our body works. Everything in our body is a balance of opposing forces. And one of the main regulations that's happening is a balance between inflammation and turning off inflammation. And the endocannabinoid system that we all have is very much involved in turning down inflammation and the damage caused by the free radicals that are associated with inflammation. So it turns out that all age-related illnesses are associated with free radicals and inflammatory responses. So if we're looking at autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular disease, neurological dysfunction, and cancers, they all have commonalities in that they all represent the consequences of essentially being alive, of aging. And that aging process can be essentially slowed down by cannabinoids. I like to use the term that free radicals are the friction of life, and the endocannabinoid system is the oil of life. So it helps to minimize things like arthritis and Crohn's disease and diabetes and cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's disease. The range of potential therapeutic impact from modifying and turning on the endocannabinoid system, which is what the plant is doing, it's simply mimicking it, is astounding.
Doctor, any discussion on this subject would not be complete without talking about the political and social implications of medical marijuana. There are just those people who are never going to accept cannabis as a medicine. Can you tell us what the progress has been made in that regard?
Well, with the discovery of the endocannabinoid system, which is this marijuana that we produce within us, and the fact that it serves as a universal global homeostatic regulator, which means that it keeps things in balance. The science has exploded. Amazing amount of papers, hundreds and hundreds just this year alone. And if you plot how many papers are coming out every year, there's more and more every year. Every major pharmaceutical company in the world is working on cannabinoids, but what they're trying to do is produce synthetics that they can patent. We feel that there's benefits to not using single compounds, but rather using the compounds, the diversity of compounds that are provided by the plant and provided by different strains of the plant to benefit people. So that it's quite clear that in addition to regulating things like appetite that everybody understands, the cannabinoids regulate our pain levels, our hunger, our sleep levels, as well as directly impacting on our immune system and on the ability of cells to survive, which becomes critical when you're trying to kill cancer cells, for example. These compounds are very neuroprotective. When your body has, say, head injury or stroke, your body upregulates your cannabinoid production in an effort to do things. So how is it that our governments have essentially denied these facts? And there's a very interesting explanation for that, because one of the things that our endocannabinoids control is open-mindedness. So it's intrinsic that in a population of people, there are going to be people who are more endowed with cannabinoids and more open-minded, and therefore able to accept changes as they learn new information. And there are people who are not going to have that capacity. They basically can't rewire and learn new things to replace their old beliefs. And unfortunately, it seems that our governments are very much populated by what I call blips, backward-looking people who are cannabinoid deficient with respect to their ability to be open-minded and learn new things. The science is compelling and overwhelming, and it's right there for anybody who wants to read and to look at. And the fact that our governments have such faulty policies that are harming millions, literally millions of people is ridiculous, and that's what we want to turn around.
Well, Doctor, you just mentioned something, and I also saw this on your website, something called endocannabinoids. Can you tell us what those are, please?
Yeah, these are lipid compounds. You know, we frequently hear about how beneficial it is to take omega-3s and omega-6s, things that are known as the essential fatty acids. Well, those essential fatty acids are the substrates. Those are the building blocks that our bodies use to make endocannabinoids, which then have this marijuana-like activity. So we make them throughout our body. We use them all day long, every day, because they are what sets the tone, basically, between what I call a pro-inflammatory biochemistry and an anti-inflammatory biochemistry, and they really turn off inflammation. And it's inflammation that's the heart of so many of the age-related illnesses as a result of the associated free radicals that are produced by that biochemistry.
Well, Doctor, about 10 years ago, Spain's Universidad Complutense in Madrid released a study which showed that THC can induce cell death in certain brain tumor cells without affecting surrounding healthy cells. Now, if we've been talking about aspirin, this would have been front-page news for 5 years, why has the news about this study been so relatively quiet?
Well, there's such a political agenda here. There's so much fear that's been pounded out by the media, stimulated by literally the government spending billions of dollars of our tax money in an effort to promulgate this lie. What's quite clear is in the studies of Manuel Guzman from Spain, where marijuana, THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, has been used to treat glioma. It's even going into clinical trials, very limited because, the fear of the psychological effects that they might have. The government's policy is die rather than get cured as long as you don't get high. That is ludicrous. Cannabis and cannabinoids and endocannabinoids have now been shown to be involved in numerous cancers and regulating and killing numerous cancers, including lymphoma, leukemia, skin cancer, melanoma, breast cancer, prostate cancer. I mean, every way you look, the cannabinoid system is involved, and very importantly, it's involved in preventing metastasis, the spreading of the cancer. There's a variety of biochemical pathways that promote the ability of a cancer to spread from wherever it starts. And those pathways are all inhibited by the endocannabinoid system. So here we have a medicine all contained in a plant that's capable of relieving pain, act as an antidepressant, directly kill the cancer cells, stimulate the appetite, promote people to relax, promote people to be happy. Isn't this exactly what cancer patients need?
Why do you think America has failed in the war on drugs?
You ask me why I believe our current drug policy of drug prohibition is not working, and the evidence is all around us. It's just that people are not focusing on it. If you look at it, these drugs, even though they can be dangerous, have been with us since the beginning of mankind. There's never been a society on the face of the earth that has not had some mind-altering, sometimes addicting drugs to use, abuse, and get addicted to. So the question is, if they're going to be here, they're going to be harmful, let's take steps to reduce that harm, understanding that they will never go away no matter what we do. So what we are doing now in our country with drug prohibition is compounding the problems, because the drug money is much more dangerous really than the drugs themselves. And that takes on a micro or a macro aspect that is really unbelievable. If you or anyone else would start to look into this more deeply, you would be horrified at the unnecessary harm that we are inflicting upon ourselves. The harm is mostly inflicted upon our children. We are continuing with this failed policy, basically to do it for our kids. We're trying to keep these sometimes dangerous drugs away from our children. The problem is the drug money, in effect, puts our children in harm's way for two reasons. Number one, it is easier for our children, our underage adults, to get any form of illegal drug, be it marijuana or anything else, than it is a six-pack of beer. Why? Because as soon as you prohibit something, you give up your ability to regulate and control it. And so basically the drug dealers don't ask for ID. And you talk to any of the high school kids, underage kids that you want, they'll tell you the same thing they tell me. It's easier to get any illicit drug than it is alcohol. Number two is the drug money is recruiting children to sell drugs. They see and they realize they'll probably never be able to make as much money on anything as they can by selling drugs. And then, of course, who do they sell to? You and me? No, they sell to their 14, 15, 16-year-old peers, thus recruiting more children into a lifestyle of drug usage and drug selling. It is not a pretty picture.
And what's the answer? What is your proposal?
You, like everyone else, will ask, what's the answer? And there is no answer. There's no solution to this problem. There's only a resolution. And the resolution is to reduce the harm that can and will be caused from these drugs in our communities. What I would do if I were King of California would be, or King of the United States. King James has a real ring to it, but it hasn't quite caught on yet. But allow each state to decide how best to serve its people. And then one state may come up with something that works pretty well. Another state will come up with something that doesn't. Well, what's that second state going to do? They're going to look around and think, gee, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. Let's look at this first state and try what they're doing. It's called federalism, and we now have 50 crucibles of democracy, in effect, in our country, plus the District of Columbia, that can try to figure out what works. And I assure you, the federal government does not have all of the answers. In fact, what we're doing now, flat out, is not working. So that's what I would do. If I were in King of California, because that's where I live, I would basically start with marijuana. I would treat marijuana like alcohol. What would happen if we were to do that? 5 things, all of them beneficial. The first thing that would happen is we in California alone, as taxpayers, could save $1 billion that each year we spend in a futile effort to eradicate marijuana and incarcerate nonviolent marijuana users. And by the way, marijuana is the largest cash crop in the state of California today. Number 2 is grapes, if you care. So we could save that $1 billion. The second thing we could do is tax the silly stuff and generate revenue of about $1.5 billion every year. So now we have a $2.5 billion change in our budget deficit. You'd think somebody would notice. The third thing trumps the first two, and that is we would make marijuana less available for our children than it is today, because today the marijuana users or sellers do not ask for ID. We couldn't make this drug more available if we tried. The fourth thing that would happen is it would negate the entire medical marijuana issue. People who need this medical marijuana could get it through their medical doctors or otherwise, and it would get the federal government basically out of this business, which would be a really good thing. And the fifth thing is that we could reclaim the entire hemp industry. That is a valuable commodity, and if you look into it, it's amazing what people can make from hemp. So those are the 5 things, and it would It's simply loony not to do this.
Barack Obama and his drug czar have been coming out and being open in the public that they are shifting their focus and they are going to start working more towards putting money towards prevention and towards treatment. And then we look at the report and we look at the figures and we see that they've barely even shifted the balance. So why are they, lying?
For one, the drug czar is required by law to lie about any legalization efforts.
What do you mean that he is legally required by law to lie?
Well, according to the law that established both the War on Drugs and the Drug Czar's office, he is supposed to, at all costs, fight any legalization effort of any drug. You see that in the administration's national drug control strategy that says this administration firmly opposes the legalization of marijuana or any other illicit drug. Now, that phrasing, illicit drug, by definition means illegal. And the drug czar, in 2003, there was a inquiry into Congress to find out what exactly the drug czar has been doing and saying that may have been a lie. And the Congressional Report Service wrote back and said, well, actually, the law says he has to fight legalization, and that means that he can lie if he needs to do that.
What was your reaction when you heard that the Seattle Times was saying, okay, it's time now to legalize marijuana?
I think it was more of a non-reaction.
But let's talk about it.
Well, one is that we know very clearly from the research that if you take marijuana and make it legal, that you will greatly increase the number of people using it.
Right. Do you think anyone who otherwise would not want to do heroin would do it just because it's legal? If it was legal, would anyone here do heroin tomorrow because it was easy to get? And what is it?
If you punish drug users more, you get lower rates of drug use, because that's the justification that's used for the spending of money and the infliction of pains through the criminal justice system on drug users. And what I found is that penal drug policy doesn't seem to have that effect. There doesn't seem to be a link across time or across place between a harsher drug policy and lower rates of drug use for related harms. So, for example, over the last few years in England and Wales, we've reduced the punishment of cannabis users, and cannabis use has continued to decline. In Portugal in 2001, they decriminalised the possession of all kinds of drugs, and some categories of drug use have declined. For example, drug use among 16-year-olds has declined. By contrast, America has a policy of huge levels of incarceration of drug offenders, but seems to have higher rates of drug use than many of the other countries that I've looked at.
We have approached the problem now for 90 years in the United States with only one strategy: spend more money, arrest more people. Our treasury is empty and our prisons are full. And we have a problem that is worse than it ever was.
We also know right here in the state of Washington, people that have a drug problem, it's over marijuana.
It's undoubtedly true that there are more teenagers and kids in treatment for marijuana than all the other drugs combined. What the DEA never tells you is why that's true.
A kid is caught possessing or smoking marijuana. He's taken to court. He's given a choice. Either some horrible penalty, or you go to a treatment center. Obviously chooses to go to treatment and goes to treatment there. He's considered an addict.
But then the DEA gets to point to that stat and say, look at all these kids in treatment for marijuana.
Only 3% of the people in treatment for marijuana are there voluntarily. The other 97% were told to by their guardian or told to by a judge. You can choose between jail or treatment. A lot of people choose treatment.
It provides no basis for speaking about addiction. Anybody who is at all sophisticated about marijuana would rate them the way two researchers were asked to rate drugs in order of addiction. Nicotine was 1, alcohol was 2, then heroin, then cocaine, and then coffee, and then marijuana. There may have been a couple of other drugs, but marijuana was at the very bottom, below coffee.
This narcotic, unlike the opiates, the synthetics, and cocaine, is non-addictive.
What do you mean by non-addictive?
By non-addictive, it is meant that the user of marijuana, when deprived of the drug, will not experience the agonies of withdrawal. It is habitual, but its use can be discontinued.
We also know that we can't collect near enough money in taxes on alcohol to pay for the health, social, and criminal justice costs. Why in anyone's name would we think that we could do a better job with marijuana?
From beat cop to police chief, I saw ample evidence of the harm caused by alcohol and the absence of evidence caused by marijuana use. And I mean the complete absence. I cannot recall a single case in which marijuana contributed to domestic violence, crimes of theft, and the like.
Most of the violent crime that's committed, or most of the crime period that's committed having to do with drugs, is people who are on drugs committing violent crimes. If you make it legal, if you make it cheaper, you make it more available, you're going to have more violence, more addiction,
Tom, that is
more
not
crime.
true. Stop lying to us.
Oh, now, come on.
Stop lying to us. That is not true. You know, don't tell me that. I've smoked pot, Tom. I've admitted it. I've done it. I've done all of the big three. I've done tobacco, I've done alcohol, and I've done marijuana, Tom. Guess what? Marijuana's the least of the three, pal.
There are far more crimes committed under the influence of unadulterated, if you will, emotions. anger, rage, jealousy.
We have availability, though, of alcohol, and I could somewhat argue that alcohol is as much a problem in our society as the drug problem is, and that marijuana is nowhere near a problem as alcohol might be.